YouTube. This is Mahadev, the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to take a look at, unfortunately I can't go as deep as I want to because I need to keep things family friendly. That's a euphemism here on YouTube, but we're going to talk about two competing narratives that are beginning to arise in ways I never thought would ever be possible. The world is a very strange place. This is Mahadev, the Thunder Wizard. Before I get into it, I need to let you know that this channel is here to give you practical techniques. I'm not here just to listen so that you can listen to me talk. You're wasting your time if that's all you're doing. Maybe I can open your mind a little bit with some of my rants, maybe not. But I can guarantee you, if you do the practices that I make available to you, I guarantee you, your mind will expand, your body will continue to shift, your psyche will also heal. And you can find those if you just go to the Thunder Wizard DOTCOM YouTube channel page and look in the playlist. Don't be a lazy YouTuber. Don't just go wherever YouTube tells you to watch. Take control over your viewing habits. If you're serious, like you want to achieve awareness and you want to shift up to the next dimension, then I encourage you to go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. I've made it easier now to find all of the specific Lightning Qigongs and Warrior 90-Day videos. Just subscribe. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. My books as well. You can go to michaelwilliamdenny.com. And please, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, like, hit the bell button so you can be notified whenever I'm here. All right, so the war of the competing alien narratives. What you're going to see is that this narrative is going to start to separate, and you are going to start to hear more and more about evil aliens, and not from the places that you used to hear it. So we really didn't start hearing about aliens until the 1980s. The first alien abduction event that was that became very popular, in fact, strangely enough, way back in the 70s, with Maureen Stapleton, if you ever watched All in the Family. Maureen Stapleton played a woman who was abducted by aliens. So the Betty and Barney Hill case, she played Betty Hill. The Betty and Barney Hill abduction case happened when I was born, 1963. 10 years later, there was a movie made about them. It was a television movie. And at the time, the technology that the aliens were using were so advanced, we would say, in fact, there were articles written in magazines saying this has to be true because we don't have the ability to test to see if somebody is pregnant, but the aliens used a big giant needle. I mean, and that sounds ridiculous now. These beings who supposedly told Betty Hill that they came from Zeta Reticuli and showed her exactly where they came from. They traveled faster than the speed of light to get to Earth just so that they could stick a giant needle into her stomach to see if she was pregnant. Whereas even if you're not in a hospital now, if you're not some advanced scientist, you can simply just, put some couple of drops of bodily fluid onto a tiny thing and find out instantly. So how is it that we, who are just dumb, stupid humans now, we're able to do that incredibly advanced thing, whereas the Zeta Reticulans couldn't figure out how to test to see if a woman was pregnant or not? I mean, you would think they would have the ability to scan you. They would just point a tricorder at you, and they had to stick a needle all the way into her belly button to see if, her amnio sac was filled with whatever. But that was the start. After that, you started hearing about alien abductions, and you started seeing from that point on, you started seeing these grays. Now, what's interesting about the gray aliens is that even in the Las Vegas alien and even in the most recent New York alien, invasion thing that's now going all over TikTok, the gray aliens are always naked. Have you ever noticed that? Why are these extremely advanced, highly intelligent, technologically advanced beings that travel faster than the speed of light, millions of light years away, why do they come here and they're incapable of wearing clothing? What is that about? Well, so that's when it started. And of course, from the beginning, we were told, from the very first, you were told that aliens are evil. They're evil, they're sociopathic, they're destructive. At the very least, they are sociopathic beings from some other place and don't understand basic manners like respecting your boundaries and seeking to communicate. They just go in and grab you, and then people started those people, and this is when ufology started taking off, and people wanted to say that, well, no, these beings are good, they're just different from us. So that is one narrative that is continually being given, and it is reviving itself. All you have to do is go on to TikTok or search for New York aliens. And here we have, within the span of a couple of weeks, mainstream media, or, because we can say TikTok is mainstream media. Here we have mainstream media has given us two, not one, but two alien crash events, or where aliens have landed in both cases, into somebody's backyard. And the second video, maybe it's a hoax, maybe it's, well, who knows what it is. But what I find interesting is that the aliens, of course, they look like typical frightening movie aliens, the big black eyes, and and they're hiding in the corn stalks, and being evasive and all of that. And so what does that look like? It looks like that movie that Mel Gibson was in, that alien movie. It looks like that. These aliens are landing and running around into people's backyards. So why would they be doing that? Why is this something that we're seeing? And again, we have to ask the question. Let's bring in the other new big thing that's happening on mainstream news, which is the so-called whistleblower, the so-called ex-military CIA whistleblower, who is supposedly revealing to all of us something any idiot with two eyeballs and two ears can figure out, which is that there are unacknowledged military programs where, what are humans doing? Learning how to create flying saucers. Is this really something that is unbelievable? And yet, before this, we had the two main whistleblowers. One is Elizondo, and I forget the other guy's name, that was going around, again, all over mainstream media, talking about Tic Tacs and saying complete misinformation. Like Elizondo would go through this list of all the things that these Tic Tacs could do, and then he would say that we don't have the ability. And one of them was going faster than the speed of sound. And that right there is just a bold-faced lie. We've had, supersonic jets since before I was born. So you are being given misinformation, and the biggest one is, how is it that these so-called experts, these ex-military, this one guy, Grush, is supposedly an ex-CIA guy who is going around, and it has made the rounds on all of the mainstream media. How is it he is able to go onto all of mainstream media and talk about these supposed incredibly secret projects, and being able to do this all over mainstream media? Why am I keep repeating that? Because it has become very clear to me that things that end up on NBC and your affiliate news channels, these things aren't something that are allowed. It's not like are we allowed to talk about this? These are things that are manufactured and then plastered all over the place. And you're supposed to be thinking, oh my God, they got this scoop. And yet, not one mainstream channel has made any mention of Dr. Greer's press club event where they had something like 16, I don't know how many of them, at least 6 or something, a handful of ex-military. And then they showed that was only 0.5% of all of the insiders and whistleblowers that they had at their disposal. Not one mainstream media outlet said anything about it. Yet they're happy to talk about supposed 10-foot alien beings who crash landed into some guy's backyard in Las Vegas. And isn't it convenient that Las Vegas is right next door to Area 51? I find that very convenient. And then these 10-foot tall alien beings, for some reason, needed to run around on the roof, and they needed to climb into somebody's tractor, and they needed to frighten the hell out of everybody. And then they got in their ship and flew off. And then we got this other guy in New York who's out there taking pictures in his backyard again, and some big, frightening-looking Zeta Reticuli-looking alien is out there hiding in the corn stalks. And this is getting plastered everywhere. And the point isn't whether or not it's a hoax or not. That's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is that this seems to be somebody is repeating and introducing a continuing narrative. So my prediction is that you're going to see more and more of these things. Now, you're not going to see them you're not going to see them on Nightline. You're not going to see them on MSNBC. What you're going to see them in places like TikTok and other places like that can go viral very quickly. And you're going to see them again in people's homes. And again, it reminds me of the movie Signs that Mel Gibson was in, where again these beings are landing into people's backyards for some reason and running around in the corn stalks and frightening the hell out of you. And they're very deceptive, and they're but they obviously have evil intent. And what's supposed to happen now is that as more and more of these things start popping up on TikTok and who knows wherever else, Twitter and whatever, and then get on the news, MSNBC, MSN, the internet, MSN, which is owned by who? The same people that own Google, the same people that own YouTube, the same people that are friendly with those that brought us the trying to save our lives from that, whatever that was. You're seeing it there. You're seeing it in places that are highly controlled and tend to have an agenda in terms of, I can say that, a censoring, choosing to censor information and promoting other information, whether for good or for ill, means you have an agenda. So if this kind of information is getting on places that have an agenda about what information you receive, you have to take a look at that. And the stuff that is actually groundbreaking isn't getting anywhere. That's because that's a conscious decision. Somebody has chosen to not let that information be seen. I'm surprised it even got onto YouTube, if I'm being honest. So that is one narrative, and it's going to increase. And what you're going to see, I believe, and I'm happy to be wrong about all of this. I don't need to be right about any of it. This is just my own personal prediction about what I think might happen, but I could be wrong. What I think is going to probably happen is you're going to see more and more of these backyard alien crash landing invasions where aliens are running around hiding in the bushes or trying to steal tractors or walking on your roof. And these videos are going to start making their way onto YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever the hell else. I don't even know all the places that the kids go nowadays with their phone cameras. But you're going to see more and more of that, and that stuff is going to then get on the news, because then the news is going to act like, well, we need to talk about it. It's all over TikTok, and people are showing these strange videos of aliens in their backyard climbing on their roofs, and we got to talk about this. No, we're just giving out the news. Oh, but you can't talk about that. But we can talk about this nonsense. And it's designed to do exactly, I mean, if we were watching, it's like it's directly out of a sci-fi movie. If we were watching a sci-fi movie, where in that movie there is such a thing as journalism and there is such a thing as, news reporting and all of that, and all of a sudden these things start showing up on the news clips and people are saying, we got to take this seriously. You write the rest of that script. What's going to happen next? Then what's going to happen is all of a sudden everybody's getting invaded by these beings that are flying and dropping out of the sky. And the next thing you know, they're going to be taking homeowners hostage. And then the next thing you know, you're going to find bodies everywhere. And then the next thing you know, that's what this is designed to do. This is designed to create fear in you of extraterrestrials. Well, if we were to continue to write that, and again, I'm just talking about a movie. If you were to continue to write a science fiction movie, what would be next? Well, in the science fiction version, the aliens would begin doing what? They would begin attacking the military. They would begin attacking, hometowns. I mean, there's a reason why Signs, it was set in the Midwest, which is what? All Americana. Your typical, hardworking American, salt of the earth people who work to farm, and they're the ones that have to fight off the evil aliens. Because you relate to that. You relate to that more. If it's just some vehicle that appears over some giant city, that's kind of weird, but it's not nearly as frightening as I've got cell phone video of some strange thing hiding behind the corn stalks and climbing onto my tractor. That's a lot more frightening. The whole point of it is to frighten the hell out of you. Because, why is this happening now? It happens right at the same time that Dr. Greer comes forward with actual evidence that's being given to Congress. What you don't know if you're watching Twitter or MSNBC or whatever, what you don't know is that, stacks of information, verified whistleblower information from both the military, all different kinds of military, deep state programs, black ops programs, as well as from the technological sector like Raytheon and places like that. People are coming forward with that, with actual intel, verifiable intel, and this is getting to Congress, specifically to get these unacknowledged military programs, as well as the technological firms that are hired by them, to come clean. That's the whole point of that. And so they know this is coming. I mean, obviously, they knew it was coming. The alien, the Las Vegas alien who somehow got out of Area 51 and wanted to go gambling and crashed his spaceship in some guy's backyard in Vegas. How convenient. That had happened weeks before, but it was released on all of mainstream media just 2 days before this real press club event, an event where the press is invited. Apparently, the real mainstream press didn't show up. Just a bunch of tiny little, off-brand, not mainstream media showed up for that event. It's too coincidental. And so that's one narrative. And the narrative has always been, and unfortunately the ufology crowd follows this. I'm not a ufologist, and I'm grateful I'm not a ufologist. And I'm frustrated with people who seem to be open to the whole idea of extraterrestrials, and yet they're more interested in following ufology than they are in actually researching with their own mind and body, actually researching, interacting with extraterrestrials and finding out for themselves. I'm flabbergasted when I go onto these CE5, because they're all over Facebook, CE5 groups on Facebook. And I'm flabbergasted at the amount of people who clearly don't do CE5, but they want to talk about UFOs and they want to talk about aliens. And the whole point of CE5 is that you are actually physically, personally doing the investigation by just simply reaching out and seeing if you can have a personal experience. And I haven't yet found one person who's done CE5 who got abducted. Not one. Not one person. Not one person who's done CE5 where giant 10-foot three-dimensional beings end up walking around in your backyard and climbing into your, into your equipment out there, your tractor equipment. Not one time has somebody done CE5 and then some strange being, physical, three-dimensional, big-eyed, bug-eyed being is running around in your corn stalks in your backyard. Never once has that happened. So you get where I'm going. The other side of the narrative is the narrative that comes from personal experience, which is when you personally initiate the interaction. And as I've said many times before, that is always going to be in a interdimensional space. I'm sure that these beings could, if they wanted to, manifest in the third dimension. I'm assuming they could. But they don't. They never have, in my experience, and I've never seen anybody who said that they did. And if an ET manifests in a physical form, it will always be sort of phased in and out. It'll be half in and half out of your third dimension. And it is always a pleasant, healing, friendly experience. People might have some fear because something is going on they don't understand, but that's a hell of a lot different than some 10-foot alien running across your roof and trying to steal your tractor. A huge difference between, I've never seen that before, and it's frightening to me. But, that's what happens whenever you see something anything you've never seen before. Your first reaction is to be afraid of the unknown. And not to mention the whole aspect of being abducted. And I understand people who believe in abductions, especially since it's a real thing. People have been abducted. People have been abducted. They have been experimented on. They have been, they've been physically violated, sexually sometimes. I do believe that there is a hybrid breeding program, but I do not believe it is being done by extraterrestrials. It is my belief, based on, you can watch it yourself. I should put the link in here. I'll put it in the description. But you can go on to Dr. Stephen Greer's YouTube channel and see the press club event yourself, and people will explain to you what is really going on with that. But people have seen that. There's reports of that. Apparently there are facilities where unacknowledged programs are taking downed alien bodies and taking the DNA from those bodies and trying to create hybrids. And we have no shortage of people who have been abducted who talk about being used in this program, and even some of them have seen their children. And what's interesting is whenever they talk about the children always look really sickly. The description, they have stringy hair, they're frightened, they got big eyes, and they're uncomfortable. And this doesn't sound like anything that is pleasant for anybody. Those children do not sound, if they exist, do not sound like they're having a good time. So if anybody's doing a breeding program, it's humans. And again, the difference is in one narrative, despite the fact that it's frightening, despite the fact that, one guy said to me, again, these people on Facebook, just people, I'm sorry, human beings don't pay attention. That's just a thing about people. That's what annoys me about people the most. Probably the one thing that annoys me most about humans is they don't pay attention. And they don't put any effort. And you have to put effort to pay attention. You park your car, in parallel parking, you got to put effort and pay attention. People that double park, they're not paying attention, they don't give a crap, and they're not putting any effort into it. People show up on these things, and I mentioned one of these, somebody asked about, what do you think about the Las Vegas thing? And I said, it's misinformation. It's a false alien event. And then somebody said, well, how can that be? It wasn't a hostile experience. And I said, what do you mean it wasn't hostile? Somebody crashes in your backyard, tries to steal your tractor, gets up and walks across your roof, freezes you. Some kid said that he saw one of the beings and the being froze him with his eyes. That's incredibly hostile. Just because somebody wasn't abducted doesn't mean it wasn't hostile. So that's what you're going to see. So just keep your eyes open. I'm happy to be wrong about this, but I think I'm going to have to make another video, which maybe I'll put on a less family-friendly place like YouTube, and I'll give you what I believe the entire strategy is. But I won't do that here. But this is obviously designed to create fear, obviously designed to get you to believe that aliens exist and that aliens are something frightening, and that they are in fact alien. The word alien means apart from, different. Extraterrestrial simply means from another planet. But the other narrative is the one that's given by people like myself who have had personal interaction experience with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings. It is always a loving experience. It might be challenging to your understanding of yourself and your understanding of the third dimension. Zero physical contact happens except for maybe a slight touch on the shoulder or touch on the head, or sometimes they'll touch your hand just to let you know that they're there. But they won't do anything beyond that. There's never any abductions that go on. There's never anything that goes on that you don't personally want to experience. And once you experience these higher dimensional beings and you understand that they see you as their family, they don't see you as another species on another planet that they have to look at and they have to experiment with and they have to figure out. Because from their perspective, they see you for what you are, but you're a soul. You're an infinite soul. And they are also infinite souls. And they have been human beings before. You have been an extraterrestrial before. The only difference between you and them might be where you live and how you look. But in terms of how you deal with other people, it turns out that there's a universal law all across the universe that we call the golden rule. Never do anything to somebody else you wouldn't want somebody to do to you. And never do something that is harmful to other people. Do no harm. That is another universal rule. We didn't make that up. It's not like human beings have these rules for, treat others the way you want to be treated and don't do anybody any harm. And there's another universal rule, which is have empathy. Try to see yourself in the other person, and whatever it is that they don't want, don't do that to them. Even if you like it, don't do it to somebody else. This is a universal law. It's not unique to humans. But this is what you're being told every time you are given this false narrative of some alien creature from another planet who's sociopathic and doesn't understand the ways of these humans, and we can just take you and experiment on you and sexually abuse you, and we can take your genetic material without your permission, and we can hybridize you for our own needs. I mean, that's our culture. So don't cancel me just because I'm alien and I do things different than you. How dare you humans? That's racist. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. People who worship the ufologists that want to spiritualize alien abduction as though it's some kind of some kind of evolved thing. It's not. It is a sociopathic, psychopathic action that doesn't respect other people's boundaries, that treats people like objects. And who does that? Sociopaths, psychopaths, narcissists. And it's wrong here, and it's wrong out there. Same thing with religion. If we were to take a look at Jehovah, the God of the Bible, and we were to take his behavior and give it to a human being, we would lock that person up as a sociopathic menace. But if you go to church, they say, God's ways are not our ways. Why does God do all these horrible things? Well, we can't judge God. God is different than us. But that doesn't make sense. That's not common sense. Common sense says all beings have the same rights. All beings have the same experience. And what is wrong in one situation is wrong in another. So if it's wrong on earth to violate people's boundaries, to abduct people, to physically harm them, to experiment on them, to frighten them, it's going to be wrong in another part of the galaxy. It's going to be wrong in another part of the universe. It's going to be wrong in another dimension. And if the right thing to do on earth is to love people unconditionally and to treat people the way you would want to be treated, and to then have empathy and find out how other people want to be treated and treat them the way they want to be treated, even if it's different from yours. If that's true here on earth, it's going to be true in another galaxy. It's going to be true in another dimension, because these are universal laws. And if you break universal laws, bad things happen. Human beings have been breaking universal laws, their own universal laws. Forget about God's laws or other beings. Human beings have been breaking their own universal laws about treating other people with respect, not invading other people's country, not forcing people to do things they don't want to do, not taking away people's freedom, treating people like objects, treating people like numbers. This is what human beings do all the time, every day. And so our race is continuously breaking universal laws. And that's without even getting into the fact that we are poisoning the atmosphere, we're poisoning our own earth. That's not even bringing into the conversation that we use that we know of, nuclear weapons, nuclear power, that destroys the fabric of reality, not only in this dimension, but in other dimensions. Human beings are violating universal laws right and left, and any being that does that will destroy themselves. And again, let me just give to you, connect it, see how this narrative connects. Jeff Bezos wants to put 1 trillion people in space. There's not even 1 trillion people on Earth. But he wants to put 1 trillion people into space stations. Don't believe me? Go to his channel. Go to Jeff Bezos' channel and watch. They make these movies like they're advertisements, advertising homes up in space stations. Why? According to Jeff Bezos, we need energy, meaning we need resources that we can burn or use for energy. You're doing it right now. They'll even say you're watching the internet. You use electricity. You need it for your car. You need these fuels. You need these these elements, but we're running out of them on Earth. I'm not making this shit up. We're running out of these things on Earth, but there's this whole universe out there filled with all of these rocks and chemicals and things like that that we can use for fuel. So we love the Earth, and we love the Earth so much. Listen to this thinking. We love the Earth so much that we're going to go out into space and we're going to mine the moon and we're going to mine Mars and we're going to mine other planets for their raw materials, and then we're going to bring them back here and we're going to use them to fuel our cars and make computers. And we need you to live in space because we're going to have factories in space. And they got scientists. They literally have scientists talking about what a great idea this is. And you're going to live in space, and you're going to, but the whole point that he's not telling you is, oh, and by the way, I'm going to own those resources, and I'm going to sell them to you. Oh, what's that? You can't afford it? Well, you better come up and live in one of my space station things, and, in exchange for, rent, I will use you as slave labor. And in the grandiosity of my generosity, I'm going to let you in your little space station cubicle burn the energy that will let you go on the internet and let you do it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now combine that with what's happening. Who do you think benefits from this narrative of evil, narcissistic, sociopathic aliens who don't understand basic common sense rules of kindness and generosity? Landing in your backyard and running around in your plants and trying to steal your tractors. Who do you think that benefits? It benefits all of that. Because now you get to go to war against the beings that are trying to stop you from destroying yourself. That's what this is about. Extraterrestrials, by the way, have been here since before humans have been here, and you have been an extraterrestrial. You were part of the people that created human beings to begin with, so that you could make videos about what the human body really is. But, if what you want is to narcissistically control the whole world and use resources that you've been convinced you need, use them as a means to control people and use them as slave labor, who do you think benefits from that? And who benefits from the narrative that we don't have the ability to create technologies that don't use resources? Who benefits from that? There's no money to be made if you are able to travel, to heat your home, to light your home, to fuel whatever technology you use. There's no benefit in any ruling, elite class if you aren't paying them. And you pay for everything. You pay for petroleum, you pay for electricity, you pay for natural gas, you pay for your vehicles that burn those petroleum gases. You can't function without paying somebody else. You are a slave to people who have the things that you want. If we were to take it back in time, it would be as though, way back when, let's take some tribe that lives, there's no money, but they live in the middle of nature. It would be as though an army stood around and pointed spears at you every time you tried to go out and hunt. It said, we're not going to let you hunt. Have you been approved by the chief to hunt? No, only the approved hunters get to hunt. Oh, look, here comes one now. Oh, what's that? You need some skins and you need some meat and maybe some eggs? Great. Then we are going to take something from you. No, you can't go get it yourself, even though it's already out there and available. There's an infinite number of resources for you to take care of yourself. We're not going to let you do that. We're going to decide to take care of you, and you are going to give us complete control over your life. In fact, we'll create this thing, let's call it money. Here's a bunch of shells. The big shell is worth this much. The small shell is worth this much. What's that? You don't have any shells? Well, you better go to work for me and start tilling my garden. And then I'll give you some shells, and then I will sell you. Do you realize that money means nothing? It's just a way to get your labor from you. I could go deeper into it, but if I do, it'll be so unfamily friendly. YouTube may not like it. I'll have to do it on another video. Anyways, I think you get the point. I didn't even have to talk about, the obvious, because that's what it is. It's obvious. The one narrative that doesn't make sense, I've gone on and on about. The negative so-called aliens that abduct, etc., and try to steal your tractor. The actual beings that we would call extraterrestrials, there's no need to even belabor it, because once you find out, oh, they're just like I am. They're just like I want to be. And they live the life I wish we had. I wish we lived in an egalitarian society where people actually found ways to be self-sufficient and self-empowering, and that we loved and respected everybody, and that we didn't have to do things like go to war or make guns or any stupid nonsense like that, and that you treat people with respect, that you treat people with empathy, that you learn how to empathize with others, and that people empathize with you. They actually live that. I didn't have to go into it because it makes sense. It's universal laws that everybody knows. Little kids know it. Everybody knows it. And so we're going to see this competition between narratives. And I think it's going to start getting to a head. I'll be very interested to see what happens with the information that Dr. Greer has been giving to Congress. I sure hope somebody listens. Having said that, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. What I like to do on my channel, if you're new to my channel, is I like to do a question and answer. So if you have a question, write the word question in all caps. Don't be lazy and write Q. Write the whole word question, and then write your question. And a question is, you ask me something you think I have the answer to. It's very simple. If you're not actually asking a question, I'm going to point it out to you. And the other thing I want to hear from you is your feelings. So a feeling is not an opinion, it's an emotion. So you have to actually state an emotion in that if you want to write an opinion. And before I forget, be sure that you go on to Dr. Stephen Greer's YouTube channel and watch the press briefing that he did not too long ago. I think it was the 12th, about a week ago. All right, let's see. So Zanavi, I assume you're new to the channel. Now you know what to do. If you have a question, as you see below you, Lightbringer did it. You write the word question in all caps. In case there's a bunch of people, I don't want to just scroll past your question. I want to answer it. So you say, have you looked into the accounts of remote viewers? So again, a question is you're asking me something that you don't know that you think I might know. So asking me if I've done this or I've done that, asking me what kind of underarm deodorant, that's really not the kind of question I'm looking for. Anyway, if that's of interest to you, great. Go ahead and make some videos about it, and we'll all watch it and enjoy it. If you have a question for me based on what I talk about, I'd be happy to answer that. Next question. Lightbringer, question. How does the Hool breath feel now compared to when you first learned it? Well, again, this is not really a question. And I'm going to cut to the chase here, because what I like to do is I really want to know why somebody's asking a question. And the reason you're asking this question, let me just rephrase it for you. What you're really asking me is, if I keep doing the Hool breath, will the energy increase? See how that's more really what you want to know. It's a better question, instead of sort of asking it sort of passively about whether, what it's like for me. So In terms of how it's going to feel for you, everybody is different. But for the most part, what happens to most people is that if they continue to do the whole breath on a daily basis, their meridians will continue to open up. You'll be tapping into all three of the energies, Kundalini, Chi, and the lightning center of the heart. And these energies are incredibly powerful, and the more that you do the exercises, the more powerful it gets. So to answer what your real question is, yes, if you keep doing it, your energy will most likely continue to increase, and you will continue to feel that energy. All right. No other questions. All right, so I guess we're done. So I'll give you guys a little time, since there's a slight delay, to ask any questions or share any feelings. And while I'm doing that, let me share with you the benefits of this channel. So if you go up here to thunderwizard.com, you will get to my subscription Patreon channel. And there are multiple subscription options which you can check out, but I strongly recommend that you do the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. For the same amount of money that you would spend for a video game, you will get the most powerful energy system in the history of planet Earth. And I know that's a big claim, but the reason I say that is because nobody in history has ever taken Qi energy, prana, which is life force energy, which you find in Qigong and things like that, and Kundalini. Kundalini is a different energy. Some people mistake it for Qi energy. It's not. Kundalini is the consciousness energy in the spinal column that is actually from the fifth dimension. And when that becomes awakened, you actually begin to receive higher dimensional energy, which will release large amounts of DMT in your brain. There's a reason why people do mushrooms and do ayahuasca, although I don't recommend it because it's actually harmful to your energy body. It cracks you open in an unnatural way, and it's not necessary anymore. But when you do actual Kundalini work, you will release DMT in the brain. Why is that important? DMT is the gateway to higher dimensions. We know that because when a baby is born, huge amounts of DMT are being released in the baby's brain. Where is the baby coming from? The baby is coming from being a soul and coming into physical reality. The other time that you have massive amounts of DMT released is when you die. The moment of death, huge amounts of DMT are released in the brain. It means this chemical is a gateway. Kundalini is one of the most powerful ways to stimulate DMT in the brain. You know, some people are really wrong about this. The truth is your brain produces DMT naturally, just in smaller amounts. When you do these kinds of exercises, Kundalini, yoga, things like that, mantra, you release DMT in the brain. Now we've got the third energy. So you've got Qi energy, you have Kundalini energy, and then there is an almost completely unknown energy which is called Shin, or the heart mind. And it is energy that is surrounding the heart. There's a reason why, you know, they use the little electrical paddles to revive you if you have a heart attack. It's because there's actually electricity surrounding your heart center. And that electricity is actually a barrier between your soul and three-dimensional reality, because three-dimensional reality is a very harsh place to live. So it needs to be protected by what? Electricity. Now, the Maoshan monks of China, which were considered the most powerful sorcerers in China, these guys learned how to release very simple ways, just very simple movements. It's the easiest thing in the world to do if you know how to do the movements. Very simple movements actually release that lightning energy, and instead of it staying self-contained, it actually flows out through the body. It gives you an energy that will allow you to drive away evil, negativity, ghosts, demons, just by walking in the room. Now, what if you had all three of these? You had Qi, you had Kundalini, and you had the Shin power. That's what this is. I've spent my whole life studying different traditions, and for the first time, I've synthesized it. People have tried to do it before, and they end up creating these systems that are bad, and that creates a sine wave that's very destructive. I spent years experimenting, figuring out how to bring these together. I don't know anybody else that teaches it. So go there to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge, subscribe, and if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. Just simply press play on the members only videos and follow what I do. Just follow A plus B plus C, and you will have an experience. You'll open up all the meridians, you'll open up the Kundalini, you'll release the DMT in your brain, which will give you a better ability to connect to higher dimensions. This is important because as this solar flash wave event that is happening to us, as that continues, you will need some way to be able to interact with these energies more fluidly and more safely, and that's what that does. Courses.thunderwizard.com. All of my certifications, all of my teaching, all of my services like Vedic astrology readings, rune readings, other things like that, go to courses.thunderwizard.com. My books, you see my name, Michael William Denny, add a .com to that. You can find all of my books, including Interdimensional Revolution and Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth. All right, I gave you guys plenty of time. Nobody asked a question, so I guess we're done. That's it, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you all the best. Keep your eyes out. Keep your eyes open. And I'm happy to be wrong, but if the powers that be have their way, what's going to happen is you're going to see more and more of these backyard alien experiences that are going to bring lots of fear, and you're not going to hear about the whistleblowers. And the whistleblowers that you do hear about will eventually be able to be used. I won't talk about it. I'll talk about it on another video that I'll put up on another venue. But I'll tell you what their real plan is with the whistleblowers that are on mainstream media. I won't talk about it here because I want to keep my channel. A question got thrown in here before I ended up. Question: does ET contact require you to release the ego identity? Why are you asking that question? That's my question to you. As before, I want to know what you're trying to get out of the question. There's something you're wanting to know. Are you just curious? If so, curious questions are kind of boring. If you have an emotional need to fix, I'm really happy to answer that question. My answer to that is, since I've already made it clear that doing CE5, human initiated contact, or what I call interdimensional meditation, since I've already said that that is only healing and helpful, why don't you do it and then find out and then come back and tell us what your experience is? Other than that, if you have a fear associated with the question for yourself and you want me to answer it because you know why you're asking the question, I'll be happy to answer it. Other than that, I think that's a question best answered by just simply doing it yourself. Sorry, the sun is starting to go down where I am here in Queensland, Australia. Okay, I don't see anything else. I think we're done. So I guess that's it. It's a good question. See, the thing is, Schmirk, it's a good question. I've talked about it a lot, but I really like to engage with the questioner. And I forgive me for taking such a position, but I really want to help people learn how to ask better questions. And a good question is one where you're conscious of what your emotional agenda is with the question, what problem you're trying to solve for yourself, and to be able to ask the question in a way where it relates to you personally. Those are the questions I really get excited about. And I sense that is either there in your question, or you're trying to get me to talk about something that you want me to talk about. Let's see. You say, I followed Greer's instructions a year ago and felt the call to release and got afraid. See, now we're getting somewhere. See, now I can help you. So it sounds like you did CE5. Okay, great. So this is good. Now I'm going to form the question for you. Your question is, I did CE5 before, and it felt to me like the ETs were requiring that I release my ego. Now, what you haven't said is that was frightening for you, right? That was a frightening experience. The feeling of losing control of your ego identity. And you also say you did it once, which means that you haven't done it since because you've been afraid, right? Have I got the right picture here? So to answer your question, it's not a requirement from them. They are not requiring you to do anything. In fact, I can guarantee you that what they want more than anything else is to connect with you on a spiritual, emotional level so that they can make you feel better about yourself. What they really want more than anything is to give you love. They want you to feel the, not, love in a weird way, but spiritual love, the love of God, if you will. Now, here's something that you would discover if you kept doing it. If you keep doing it, what will happen is you will find out that the fear you're feeling isn't coming from anywhere. Nobody's requiring anything of you. It's that you have never experienced the level of love that they're trying to give you. So when 3D humans experience that kind of love, intense, for us it's very intense, for them it's just normal because they're in a higher dimension. Remember, it's higher dimensions. When you feel love from the fifth dimension and the third dimension, in order to allow yourself to experience it, it means that you have to expand. This isn't them making you expand, it's just, the laws of physics. Your mind has to expand, your spirit has to expand. And that feeling of expansion makes it feel like you're being attacked. It makes you feel like you're dying. In your case, it makes you feel like you have to let go of your ego. So in this case, your ego is your self-protection mechanism, and it has nothing to do with your identity, but you have identified with it. Like any other three-dimensional human, you have learned that you need to keep your ego intact and you need to keep other people out, because if you let people in, they can hurt you. If I fall in love with somebody and I don't know that they're safe, they might hurt me. If I meet this beautiful being and I don't know who they are, they might hurt me. I feel like I'm really vulnerable. This is just you trying to protect yourself on a third-dimensional level. That's it. So now that you're conscious of that, and now you know it has nothing to do with them, they're not doing anything to you, you're just responding out of your limited three-dimensional fear-based protection mechanisms, you can make the decision. Nobody's forcing you. You make the decision. You say, I'm going to tolerate this uncomfortable feeling. By the way, we do this when we fall in love. Everybody does this. That's why it's called falling in love. And what happens when people fall in love? They go, I'm scared. This feels so good, but it scares me. I don't want to get hurt. And the other person says, I know, I'm scared too, but I'm going to be there for you. That's all that's happening. That's what you're experiencing as somebody requiring you to die to your ego. What's happening is that you're just afraid to let go and allow yourself to experience the unknown, a level of love you've never experienced, which is unknown, and allow yourself to be vulnerable. Now what's going to come up is your pain is going to come up. So when you have been hurt in the 3D, you have been rejected, the times you have made yourself vulnerable and you've been hurt, that pain is going to come up. But it's got nothing to do with them. In fact, they will literally hold your hand if you let them. They will hold your hand and be there with you in that pain. And you will heal and you will grow and you will be happier. There isn't anybody I know that's done CE5 that everybody's different. Some people have that experience that you've described, some people don't. But everybody, when they do it, their life gets better. And they have to face themselves, but not because anybody's forcing them to do it, but just because that's the nature of what happens when you're connecting with a higher dimensional consciousness. You end up having to face your limitations, and you grow and you heal. So now that we've gotten to what your question is about, I was able to help you. Lightbringer question, do we lose life force energy when we have a wet dream? So Lightbringer, do I ever talk about this? Lightbringer, I love you. I've seen you're on my channel. Here's my guess, you're not doing the work. Are you doing any of the Qigong? Are you subscribed to the 90-day challenge? I can tell when somebody's doing the work. Because they tend to ask me questions that are totally unrelated. That's a very unrelated question. I actually have made videos about it. But the short answer to your question is no. It's just a human bodily function. You're not losing any energy. There's all kinds of weird, stupid misinformation about releasing of bodily fluids. It's just a bodily fluid. It's got nothing to do with anything. It's unhealthy to not let your body release things, right? Imagine holding on to a dump for a month. Well, am I going to lose energy if I go sit on the toilet? No, you're going to release stuff that your body needs to get rid of. So just go ahead and do it. So no, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, why don't you take care of that so that you don't have to wait until you have a nocturnal experience? Why not just be a human? And you say, I asked because I had one and felt shame. That's got nothing to do, the shame, what does shame have to do with energy release? If it was a release of energy, you would feel tired. You felt shame. This is sexual shame. It's nothing short of that. It's got nothing to do with energy. It's got everything to do with your sexual hang-ups, whatever your parents did to you or taught you or whatever it is. So just learn to be human and enjoy all the things that make you human. That's one of them. You're holding in your seed to build it up for enlightenment. Well, that's understandable. A lot of people teach that, but it's pure nonsense. You're talking to somebody who was celibate for 6 years. And I gained a huge amount of energy. Now, it sounds like I'm contradicting myself. The difference is there are exercises that you can do when you do specific energy practices where you won't need to release. You haven't done that. It's obvious because you're having to force it in and then it comes out when you're sleeping. So even if it did give you the ability to retain energy, you're obviously not doing it right. Because when you do it right, there's no challenge whatsoever. The energy goes up, the fluids are changed into the spinal fluid, etc., etc. But I'm here to tell you that it's not necessary. I did it, and having done it, I'm here to tell you it's totally unnecessary. The only people that should be doing it are the people who are in extremely high-level energy practices with a teacher who can tell you the exercises and the meditations that you can do, which will automatically shift the flow of the fluids in the body so that you don't have to do anything unnatural. What you're doing is unnatural and it is damaging to you. So allow yourself to be human and then take the shame that you're feeling. And this is, again, people need to have teachers. Have a teacher. Go learn Qigong. If you want to do this, find a teacher who teaches you a high-level practice and teaches you the exercises to do that, and then talk to them about your sexual shame. There are few things more pointless and self-destructive than to be a solo spiritual journey woman. It's a waste of time. There has never been a point in time where spiritual practice was ever done alone. The guys that you see living alone in caves, guess what? They had teachers for decades. And then their teacher says, you are now ready to go off and be by yourself in the cave, my son. So please stop. And it's narcissistic. It's a narcissistic thing to be self-consumed with your own irrational, false understandings about yourself and reality, and thinking that you can, by watching videos, right? And you watch a video where somebody says you shouldn't release your seed because it releases energy, and right? And you hear all this nonsense garbage, and you go off and you try and do it. Stop wasting your time. Or find a teacher. And anyway, you should have a teacher, you should have a coach, you should have a therapist, 12-step group, By the way, I can tell when somebody has a teacher and when they don't. That's why I'm asking you those questions. I already know you don't have a teacher. All right, what else? All right, that's it. Nothing else? Thanks, guys. I wish you all the best. Thanks for showing up. Again, I love you so much. I'll tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. So if I've said anything that has been offensive or hurtful in any way, just know that I love you enough that I don't need for you to like me or to subscribe to my channel. I will tell you the truth. We have a limited amount of time. Everything is changing. And so I want to help you figure out your truth as best and as quickly as possible. So that's why I tell you the truth, unfiltered, even though you might not like it. One last question here. Sophia Palumbo question. I did CE5 meditation, no experience to speak of, but felt very tired and then fell into a deep sleep after. Is this a normal reaction for the first time? Everybody has a different reaction, but you said, very commonly people will say, I did CE5 and nothing happened. It sounds like something happened. Here's the thing. Sophia, I know a little bit about you. Here's what I know. You don't have a teacher either, right? Maybe you're doing some of the practices. You're not doing, right? When people get tired and they fall asleep, one of the interesting things that happens when people learn, when they go up here and they do the 90-day challenge and they do the Qigong that I teach, one of the first things that many people will say is, I'm so tired. I mean, I like your practice and it feels good, but I'm so tired afterwards. If you're tired, it's because you are, people think that being unable to sleep is because of too much energy. And it's the opposite. It takes more muscles to close the eyes than it does to open them. And it actually takes energy to sleep. You have to have enough energy so that you can actually go to sleep. So people who can't go to sleep don't have enough energy. And they drink coffee and it makes it worse because coffee just destroys your energy. It hypes you up, but that's because of release of adrenaline, not because it's giving you energy. In fact, it's draining you of energy. Same thing with all kinds of other things. So what ends up happening is that when you've had an experience that you have been empowered energetically, the first thing that happens is you fall asleep. This is why people, when you do interdimensional meditation, you fall asleep. Because you're actually gaining energy. I mean, I do it too. I fall asleep lots of times in interdimensional meditation. So what it tells me, Sophia, the other thing is that people fall asleep in order to, it's a defense mechanism to avoid trauma. So there are some people, they get anxious when they're having a conversation that brings up uncomfortable feelings. There are some people that will get distracted. People have ADD. Really what's happening is you got somebody who's got feelings they don't want to deal with and they just are distracted by everything. It's a way of keeping yourself from staying in your feelings. And the other one is falling asleep. There was a woman that went to one of my therapy groups. She's no longer in it, but she was very, very well defended. And whenever anybody would bring up something that kind of shone the light on her, she would start yawning. Because she didn't. Sophia, here's something else this tells me about you. You don't like to get into conflicts with people. So the way that you deal with that is you get tired and you go and sleep instead of have a conflict with yourself or with somebody else. I could be wrong, but that's common as well. So you did have an experience. Something happened where you gained an energy. You were given energy. And because it could have been for the same reason that the other person brought up, maybe you felt that you were starting to lose control of your ego and it was uncomfortable, and so your first knee-jerk reaction was just to get tired and fall asleep. That's fine. If you're sleeping, it means you needed it. So go ahead and let yourself fall asleep. At some point, you'll keep doing the CE5 enough and you won't need to fall asleep. You'll be able to interact more, and the beings will be able to interact with you in a more conscious way. So keep doing it. Rami question. Are the gods like Odin and Freya, are they aliens? It's okay with me if they are. I don't have the answer to that question. See, here's the thing, guys. We're making this thing about aliens, but bear in mind, let's go back. We live in this universe filled with conscious beings. When you get outside of the third dimension, the differentiation between physical and non-physical becomes much less important. And in fact, once you get into the fifth dimension, you know, physical beings and non-physical beings interact with each other. It's a big community of conscious beings. So calling them aliens simply means they're not from Earth. So if I said Odin was a spirit being from the ninth dimension, then by definition, he's an alien, according to the way you're describing. By definition, he's an alien. So who cares? He's a conscious being. He has a conscious existence, just like you do. Whether he was an extraterrestrial being and is now a spirit is completely irrelevant. Because you being from Earth is about as relevant as, you know, some guy being from, Los Angeles and another guy being from Oxnard, California. They're two different cities that are, you know, that everybody functions the same. These beings are you. They may be in a different dimension. They may have more power than you do, which probably isn't the case, because if you're a human being, you had to have a huge amount of power to be able to get here and become human. So I would encourage you to stop thinking about alien versus that, because it doesn't mean anything. It's just, it's a huge community of conscious beings in all different levels and living in different places. Once you get outside of Earth, you know, living on planet X and planet Z is, like I said, the difference between somebody living in Oxnard and somebody living in Los Angeles. They're two cities. They totally understand each other. It's not a big deal. Agent of the Universe question. I've been doing the energy practices by myself, and so far I've been doing everything I can. Should I push my limits further or stick with what I'm doing? I don't know. If it works, don't fix it. I don't know why you're asking me. You're the one that knows whether it's what you should do. I mean, you're a free agent. You're a free agent of the universe. Feel free to do whatever you want. My thing is, if it works, don't fix it. But, you know, if you've hit a plateau and you want to try something else, do it. Except for the fact that a lot of people keep trying different things, and it's a way of distracting yourself. So there's nothing wrong with sticking with the same thing over and over again, even if you get bored with it. Having said that, Agent of the Universe, you know, do whatever you think is best. Okay, very good. That's it, my friends. Thank you so much for showing up. I've given you all the links. Make use of them, please. Please don't be your typical sheep YouTube watcher who just goes from one YouTube channel to another, who listens to what other people say, and you know, you let other people drive your opinions. At least what I'm doing is I'm giving opinions, and then I'm giving you tools to go prove or disprove whatever I'm telling you. You want to find out whether or not there's a difference between aliens and ETs? I'm giving you the tools to go do interdimensional meditation. You want to find out whether or not, you know, this energy will help you shift? I'm not talking about it. I'm actually giving you the practices, 90-day other stuff. Go do the practices. Please go do the work. And again, I encourage you to find a teacher, counselor, coach. Don't be alone in this path. One last question, Sophia Palumbo. Question: Marvel movies depict these gods you speak of, such as Thor, Zeus, etc. Do you think it's a good way to familiarize us with these ideas? I think if it inspires you, I think it's great. I love watching the Marvel movies. I got nothing against it. All right, that's it. Thanks, guys. See you all real soon. Take care.